What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and today we are going to look at RyanSwag's incredible performance in the Ultra League of the Game Press Go Battle League Gauntlet. When RyanSwag had his 7-0 performance in the Great League, I was pretty impressed, and I definitely recommend checking out that video as well if you haven't already seen it. But I figured, based on how the metagame shakes out, one of the Game Press writers will probably sweep in the Great League. When RyanSwag went 6-0 in the Ultra League, I was floored. I really was not expecting Ryan to have such a stellar performance. I even said in my Great League coverage that this would maybe be a chance for us to catch up to the Swag Man. I thought that maybe he wouldn't do so hot in the Ultra and Master Leagues, and boy, was I wrong. A 6-0 performance is just incredible, but Ryan barely had any Ultra League games under his belt even. He's played like 15 games in the Ultra League before competing for this tournament, so it was just super impressive, and he had an incredible read on the metagame and on his opponents that made this possible. So Ryan made this 6-0 run in the Ultra League possible with Ampharos as a lead, and this part wasn't a shock to me. I did think that Ryan was going to be playing Ampharos. I've heard him talk a lot about Ampharos on his YouTube channel in the past, and I should also mention that full coverage of all of Ryan's games are also available from his perspective on his YouTube channel. I'll link to that in the video description as well, but I wanted to throw up this video to show his opponent's perspectives and just to have them covered on my channel here too. So Ampharos as the lead is part of the reason that this team is so successful. Ryan said he was banking on a lot of players running Registeel and a water type that wasn't Swampert. Ampharos can struggle a little bit against Swampert in the Ultra League, as well as, any ground types or anything like that, but that's mostly really just Swampert in the Ultra League, and none of us ran it. A lot of people ran the Giratina Registeel core, but we all ran different water-type Pokemon. Manaholix and Lorma running the Gyarados, myself running the Lapras, and then TForgery running the Crawdaunt. But I don't think that's the only thing that contributed to Ryan's success, at least from my perspective, and we'll look at this as the first battle. I was really thrown off by Ryan's Pokemon because you just don't know what moves they're going to have. He does have the Alolan Muk, which is a pretty straightforward Pokemon, I think, and probably the best Pokemon on his team as far as the Ultra League rankings are concerned. But nobody really runs Alolan Muk either in the Ultra League. I barely saw any during Season 2 in my Go Battle League play. But no, where I think Ryan's team really shines is just the variety of charge movesets that his other two Pokemon can have. Ampharos basically has to run Thunder Punch, but then it has 3 pretty distinct and viable movesets for that second charge move. It can run Thunder just as a big hard-hitting move, it can run Focus Blast to really punish those Registeels, and it can run Dragon Pulse to scare away Giratinas. But you can't run all 3 of those charge moves. A Pokemon can only have 2 charge moves, and realistically, you're only going to want to run 1, and then pair that with Ampharos' Thunder Punch because that costs the least amount of energy for shield baiting purposes. But really, it's the fact that Ampharos could be running any combination of these moves that makes it such a scary threat in the Ultra League, because you don't know. When you're playing against it, you are never 100% sure what charge moves it is actually going to have. I think this uncertainty is also doubled with the fact that Ampharos isn't really a popular pick in the Ultra League. If a lot more people were playing Ampharos, then yeah, people would probably realize, okay, Thunder Punch and Focus Blast is the moveset that it's going to have like 95% of the time, but because it is such an underutilized Pokemon, I'll admit that when I played against Ryan's Ampharos, I did not know what moveset it was going to have. And that brings us to Snorlax. Now, Snorlax is a much more popular Pokemon in the Ultra League, And most people just write off the fact that Snorlax is probably going to have Body Slam and Earthquake. Body Slam is a really cheap and strong move that also gets stronger with Snorlax, same type attack bonus. And then Earthquake just has pretty good coverage across the field, being able to at least hit most Pokemon for neutral damage, and then also has really good coverage against things like Registeel. But I've always personally felt that part of the strength of Snorlax has 4 other good charge moves that it can utilize, and because people are so focused on Body Slam and Earthquake, they'll actually take for granted that you could be running different moves. I think that a Heavy Slam Outrage Snorlax could work, or maybe Heavy Slam Earthquake or Outrage Earthquake. Some weird combination of movesets could definitely work, because people aren't expecting them. They're just expecting, okay, maybe a Body Slam bait, maybe not, and then an Earthquake for the big damage. And RyanSwag definitely makes use of that here, as he explains in his video, but he was pretty sure everybody would recognize an Earthquake when they saw one, so he decided to run Superpower on his Snorlax. Now this actually makes it bad against Giratina, but his opponents did not realize that. So we'll see a number of times in RyanSwag's games that Ryan switches into Snorlax against a Giratina, causing his opposing Giratina to want to switch out. Then he's got the Body Slam and Superpower as coverage moves, and he doesn't have to waste a charge move slot on Earthquake, which people are just expecting. So more than anything with this video, I just wanted to draw that comparison. The fact that Ryan is running these Pokemon that people are less familiar with, he's not running these meta picks, and that's actually what causes him to get such a big advantage. So I think that can be a takeaway for some of your own Go Battle League playing. Maybe not as much in the Master League, but definitely in the Great League and the Ultra League. There's a lot of ground to be gained just by playing some Pokemon that your opponents are not as used to. We're going to take a look at how all of that comes into play in my game against the Swagman, and Ryan immediately switches into Ampharos. This should have been my clue, that the Ampharos really didn't want to mess around with Giratina. I switch into Lapras, and that is a pretty obvious switch from my perspective. I don't want my Lapras to line up against his Ampharos, so using it now will allow it to take some damage. Now, I am going to shield this thinking that it's an Earthquake, and Ryan probably made a mistake there. Lapras is already pretty heavily incentivized to shield against a Snorlax, so I shield it, and it was a Superpower, so that successive Superpower is going to deal a lot less damage. That also means that this Surf, now that he has 2 Superpower debuffs, this Surf is going to hit the Snorlax pretty hard, and I'm going to be able to farm down the Snorlax. So when this Ampharos comes in, I am going to be able to Ice Beam the Ampharos, and that takes a decent chunk out of it, I believe. Yeah, it brings the Ampharos down to a little bit less than half health. I then switch into Giratina to try to catch a Thunder Punch, but the real reason that I switched to this Giratina here is I was afraid that if I let his Ampharos get a big energy lead against my Lapras, then my Giratina would be up against some Dragon Pulses. So I switched into my Giratina, which just let him freely switch into his Muk, and I probably lost the battle right there. And then if I just let the Lapras get farmed down, then I would have had the choice to go back into Giratina, and Giratina could have easily cleaned up the Ampharos without taking too much damage, and then I should have been able to deal with the Alolan Muk without too much of an issue. Instead, this is the position that we're at, and I really think that this is the spot that we're at because I didn't realize what his Pokemon were. I am able to hot swap into the Lapras to eat up his Dark Pulse, so that I can still save a little bit of my Giratina here, and then from here I do go back into the Giratina because I think I can beat it to a Dragon Claw, but he gets the Dark Pulse off on me because he was able to farm up some additional energy on the Lapras. So that was pretty close. I am going to be able to take his Alolan Muk down here, but it's super unfortunate that he had just enough energy to be able to take me down. I then wanted to farm up against the Alolan Muk so that I could Dragon Claw the Ampharos, but he's just going to switch into Ampharos, actually farm me down, and then Focus Blast my Registeel, and he still even has a shield, so that is all that she wrote. RyanSwag's going to be able to defeat me, and I think a lot of that had to do with me not knowing exactly what was going on. I was able to suss out the Superpower, or just attempt to shield an Earthquake, but yeah, he definitely got some points in that battle against me because I didn't know what moveset this Ampharos was coming in with. One other really good trick that Ryan uses in that battle, just as far as his team composition and how he plays the team, so he switches into Snorlax first. Obviously that's going to scare away Giratina, but Snorlax is totally built just for coverage. It's good to be good against what Giratina switches out and into. So that's the whole reason that Snorlax is there, to try to get a Giratina to switch out of that losing matchup. Snorlax isn't really there to actually take on Giratina. So then what's funny about that is I bring in my Giratina later in the match because Snorlax is dead. So at this point, I think that my Giratina is in a pretty safe spot. I already dealt with my opponent's hard Giratina counter. Unbeknownst to me, it was not Ryan's actual Giratina counter, and then he's able to bring in the Alolan Muk and completely dominate from there. And I just think that's a really, really clever way for him to utilize this team composition and why this team is so successful. Next, we're going to look at Ryan's game up against TForgery, rocking this Crawdaunt team. And Crawdaunt is immediately going to switch out into Registeel, and Ryan actually decides not to switch now. Ryan's Snorlax also could be pretty good against TForgery's Crawdaunt, so he's just going to stay in with this Ampharos, shield these Focus Blasts, and threaten Registeel back. Because he's got the Focus Blast on Ampharos, the Registeel is one of his better Pokemon against the Registeel. Also, it's pretty good as he gets that shield bait there. He is able to now grab both of TForgery's shields, so that's a pretty good position here too. The Registeel is going to fire back with a Focus Blast of its own, and that is going to get Ryan's second shield. So both of these players now without shields, but yeah, Ryan's pretty comfortable with the Ampharos into Registeel matchup. So what's interesting there is Ryan knew that TForgery's switch timer was going to be up soon. He didn't want to switch out of the Ampharos, but instead he goes for a Focus Blast, and TForgery catches the Focus Blast. So that is a pretty wonderful catch from TForgery. Now it's going to give Ryan the option of switching, and when he goes into his Snorlax, I actually think Ryan makes a pretty big mistake here. Like I said, the Snorlax also would have lined up good against both the Registeel and the Crawdaunt now that shields are down. So he's using this Snorlax against the Giratina, and Giratina would die to an Earthquake here. Giratina's at half health, but Snorlax doesn't have a good move against the Giratina, so that's what Ryan sacrifices with this Body Slam Superpower moveset. He is going to go for Body Slams, but these are not very effective. One of the main uses for Body Slam is for shield baits, but shields are gone. So Ryan definitely should have went into the Alolan Muk here. No real reason to go into the Snorlax, but he's still doing okay. Snorlax still does counter Giratina even despite all that, and it's just mostly going to take damage from its fast moves. We are going to see one more Dragon Claw on the Snorlax right before the Giratina falls, and the Snorlax survives with the smallest amount of health, which is going to give it enough HP to then Superpower this Registeel when TForgery brings that in. So the Superpower deals a decent chunk to Registeel. Ryan then switches into an Alolan Muk, which is now going to eat a Focus Blast. Pretty good for a Registeel on its last legs there. Then we're going to see the Crawdaunt come out for TForgery, and at this point I think RyanSwag has basically won the match. This Sludge Wave just takes out the Crawdaunt almost completely, and I do think we'll be able to see the Crawdaunt kill the Alolan Muk here, but Ryan still has both of his other Pokemon, so this is going to be tricky for TForgery. If Ryan just goes into his Ampharos, he can Thunder Punch and kill this Crawdaunt. He actually goes into his Registeel though, because he thinks that TForgery might have enough energy to fire off a Night Slash or something, but Ampharos was in a pretty good good spot here. It's got the Thunder Punch loaded and ready to go, so that's able to take out the Registeel as well, and Ryan is able to get his second victory. Now we're going to look at RyanSwag's game against Manaholix, and then also Lorma, who is running the same team. So we have Ampharos against this Registeel, and Ryan isn't going to switch out. No reason to really switch here. I do think he's going to shield this Focus Blast and basically try to play the matchup the same as he did against TForgery. So here comes a Thunder Punch as a bait for the Focus Blast, and Manaholix is not going to shield. He's just going to take that Thunder Punch. That's fine, and then he throws another Focus Blast, and this one is actually going to go unshielded here by RyanSwag. He's just going to take the Focus Blast and then work on chipping away this Registeel using straight Thunder Punch. And this Thunder Punch gets Registeel to the point where it's almost dead, so this Thunder Punch can actually take out the Registeel if Manaholix decides not to shield. So Mana doesn't shield here. He is just going to come in with the Giratina, try to farm the Ampharos down. Ryan then switches into Snorlax, though, which is met by a switch into Gyarados by Manaholix. And this is exactly what Ryan wants to have happen. He wanted to line up his Alolan Muk against the Giratina anyways, so the Snorlax was simply to try to get some shields from whatever Manaholix brings in as Gyarados shields this Body Slam, and also to line up his Alolan Muk against his opponent's Giratina. So pretty well played here from RyanSwag. We're going to see Ryan shield the Crunch here now, and then fire off another Body Slam and get Manaholix's second shield. So Manaholix really is afraid of this Snorlax, and I think he will be able to take it out here now. Oh, he's going for a Hydro Pump now that Snorlax is out of shields. Okay, really doesn't want to mess around here now. Goes for a Hydro Pump. Then we're going to see RyanSwag go into Ampharos, which causes a switch into Giratina for Manaholix. And now RyanSwag can switch into his Alolan Muk. So this is pretty similar to how my game played out against Ryan. As soon as I got rid of his Snorlax, I thought the coast was clear for Giratina, and that was not the case. So once I bring in my Giratina, same thing, once Manaholix brings in the Giratina, here comes the Alolan Muk to deal with it pretty easily. We do still have some other Pokemon going on in this battle, but this Alolan Muk should be able to clean up this Giratina. And let's see, yeah, it wins the CMP tie there again, just like it did against me. Takes out the Giratina, and then we see a quick switch into Ampharos and a Thunder Punch to take out Gyarados. And Gyarados definitely does not want to take a Thunder Punch, doubly super effective, but it barely had any health remaining anyways, so that was a pretty clean victory there from the Swagman. And we're going to look at his battle against Lorma now using the same team to see if that one plays out any differently. Ryan's battle against Lorma is going to start off exactly the same as it did against Manaholix, running the exact same team, but the conclusion is much more exciting. Like I said, it's going to start off exactly the same, so that is Ryan shielding this Focus Blast and then once again baiting with these Thunder Punches, and Lorma, similar to Manaholix, is not going to be shielding these Thunder Punches. Part of that, honestly, might be because Lorma isn't totally sure that Ryan actually has the Focus Blasts. So he's just going to go and take these Thunder Punches right now before firing off another Focus Blast. And this one, again, same thing as the game against Manaholix, is going to go unshielded by RyanSwag. Ryan then builds up a little bit of extra energy before Lorma switches into Giratina, and that prompts a switch into Snorlax from the Swagman. And I think that this was probably a mistake here from Ryan. Once your opponent switches into the Giratina, really, again, same thing as the TForgery game, you should just switch into your Alolan Muk, I think. And far be it from me to say, this is Ryan's team, so he does have a little bit more insight into how to play it, but I think he mentions in his video that this was a mistake because the Snorlax just doesn't really have any way to threaten this Giratina. Now, Lorma didn't know that, and Lorma did use a shield, which is one of the benefits of playing the Snorlax, that people will fear your moves anyways and shield, especially if you switch Snorlax into them. But this Giratina is going to be able to take out the Snorlax with a Dragon Claw. So Ryan is going to go into his Alolan Muk now. Definitely doesn't want to go into Ampharos here. And we actually get a pretty big lag spike, which is unfortunate. It means that Ryan gets a whole bunch of extra energy here. But lag is just a part of the game. It's a part of Pokemon Go battling. Ryan lives in the Midwest in the US and Lorma lives in Italy. So these players are like across the world from each other. So it is cool that we are able to battle, but unfortunately we do get some lag in this game. So Ryan has a bunch of extra energy on this Alolan Muk, and this Alolan Muk hits hard. You'll see this Dark Pulse on this Gyarados basically takes out half of its health. Ryan then switches into Ampharos. Lorma's going to switch into Registeel to eat up his Thunder Punch. And then, this is kind of funny, Ryan is unable to use his Thunder Punches here. The game just says, no, you are not using your Thunder Punches, so maybe it's payback, and Ryan loses that extra energy that he would have had on his Ampharos. He now has that on his Alolan Muk with the lag the other way around. So Ryan is going to go for a Dark Pulse here, and this Gyarados still has a shield, so this is a super close game, and I think it's a pretty fair fight at this point. Gyarados goes for the crunch, and it looks like everything is over for the Alolan Muk, but the Alolan Muk just barely survives. It's going to take one more Dragon Breath and then fire off a Dark Pulse against Lorma's Gyarados and take it down. So that was a super, super close battle. And despite the lag, I think that everything actually worked out as it should have. If that Thunder Punch had gone off against the Gyarados, obviously the Gyarados would have had to have shielded that one. And then if the Alolan Muk had that extra energy, it those things canceled out. The Alolan Muk got to use an extra charge move. The Ampharos got to use one less charge move than it should have, and the correct battler still was able to win that match, and that was RyanSwag. We're going to take a look at something a little bit different now as we look at YourCalcProfessor up against RyanSwag. YourCalcProf is running the Cresselia Obstagoon core rather than Giratina and Registeel, so this is going to play out a little bit differently, but Ryan also has his Ampharos lead up against a Shadow Zapdos, which is great for Ampharos. Ampharos gets to deal neutral damage to Zapdos and charge its moves quicker, while Zapdos hits Ampharos back for not very effective damage. So YourCalcProfessor switches into Cresselia, which means a switch into Alolan Muk from RyanSwag. And Ryan doesn't have to shield these Moonblasts. They're neutral Moonblasts because of Alolan Muk's poison typing, but this Alolan Muk will hit the Cresselia back for super effective damage, so YourCalcProfessor is going to go ahead and shield that Dark Pulse. Then we will see another Moonblast coming in from the Cresselia, and Ryan's going to let that one go through as well before firing off a Dark Pulse on Cresselia. Cresselia is a pretty bulky Pokemon, so it is going to be able to tank that Dark Pulse, and then this Cresselia is going to hit its Moonblast right before the Alolan Muk gets to its Dark Pulse. So here comes the Moonblast on the Alolan Muk, and then we actually see a switch into Obstagoon from YourCalcProfessor, and that is going to allow him to eat all of RyanSwag's energy and eat up that Dark Pulse. From there, Ryan can just switch into Snorlax, and this isn't a huge deal. We're going to see some Night Slashes onto the Snorlax from YourCalcProfessor, but the Snorlax should be able to take out this Obstagoon pretty easily with that Superpower moveset. We are going to see Ryan use his shield here just in case it's a cross chop. He doesn't want to lose all of this energy, and then once Ryan builds up to a second Superpower, he unleashes the Superpower, and that is going to kill Obstagoon. Doubly super effective. Snorlax does get a debuff, but he will still have enough energy to body slam this Zapdos, so he's going to go for that. That hits Zapdos for a pretty decent chunk of damage here. Zapdos will be able to finish off the Snorlax, especially with that debuff, but I think this Drill Peck would have taken it out regardless. So now RyanSwag can go into the Ampharos, and he should be able to clean this game up pretty easily. YourCalcProfessor will win the CMP tie here, though, and get off a Drill Peck against the Ampharos before then switching into Cresselia. Cresselia. So now we're going to see a Thunder Punch onto this Cresselia from RyanSwag's Ampharos. That's going to get shielded by Ampharos, and then Ryan switches into his Alolan Muk. And yeah, that's a pretty good positioning here from RyanSwag. The Alolan Muk can't get farmed down by Cresselia, so Cresselia has to use a Moonblast, and then Ryan can just come in and farm up this Cresselia so that he has enough energy to double punch this Shadow Zapdos, but one should be enough. It is a Shadow Pokemon. One Shadow Punch takes it down, and RyanSwag wins the game. And that's a pretty interesting result, I think, because Shadow Zapdos is rated much more highly than Ampharos in the Ultra League. Obviously, Ampharos is pretty good against that Shadow Zapdos, though. So Ampharos, I think, with that battle really proves itself as a real contender for the Ultra League. We are going to look at one more battle in the Ultra League now, and that is Ryan up against CuttyWow using his Typhlosion Zangoose Shiftry team. CuttyWow's team is also pretty sweet, and this is one of the sweeter or spicier battles in the Ultra League of the Game Press Go Battle League Gauntlet. Both of these players not using any legendary Pokemon, which is also pretty cool to see. And CuttyWow is going to go for this Blast Burn, which is a huge hitting Community Day move. That's an obvious shield from RyanSwag, and RyanSwag's Ampharos definitely wins this leading matchup just on energy generation basis alone. These Thunder Punches are going to get shielded from the Typhlosion, and as you can see, Ryan can get to a second Thunder Punch before CuttyWow can get to a second Blast Burn, so that's going to get CuttyWow's second shield, and then CuttyWow is going to use another Blast Burn, prompting another shield from RyanSwag, but Ryan will be able to beat CuttyWow to a third charge move, and that's basically going to be all that this matchup is. So here comes the Thunder Punch from RyanSwag to basically take out the Typhlosion. Actually, it fully takes out the Typhlosion. So the Typhlosion's gone. I think we'll see CuttyWow switch into Shiftry from here, and that prompts a switch into Snorlax from RyanSwag, which makes CuttyWow switch into his Zangoose. Overall, though, I think RyanSwag is at a pretty big advantage right now in this game. Ryan is going to go for a Superpower on the Zangoose, which basically takes it out, but now the Zangoose can just farm up here and throw out a close combat before Snorlax is able to get to another charge move. That actually doesn't take the Snorlax out, so CuttyWow is going to have to go for a Night Slash as well, and that will finish off the Snorlax, but the Zangoose is basically dead, and Ryan can do whatever he needs to finish the Zangoose off. It's basically dead, and it has a defense debuff, so Ampharos comes in and takes that out pretty quickly. This Leaf Blade from Shiftry might be able to just take out this Ampharos here. Yeah, so the Shiftry takes out the Ampharos pretty cleanly, but now we have two Dark-type Pokemon against each other. That's not the important part. The important part is that we have a Grass-type Pokemon against a Poison-type Pokemon. So even though CuttyWow goes for the foul play there, the Leaf Blade would have been a little bit better, but it doesn't really matter. Both of his moves are not very effective, and this Sludge Bomb is able to one-shot the Shiftry, so RyanSwag is able to win that matchup pretty easily from there. So those were all of RyanSwag's battles, culminating in his impressive 13-0 run. I hope that those were cool to watch, at least from his opponent's perspective. Like I said, you can also watch Ryan's perspective only and hear some more of his thoughts in his video. Before we go, though, I also want to discuss the results of the scores after the Ultra League. So obviously, Ryan, 13-0, is at the top of the scoreboard, and he's almost basically a lock for first place at this point before we get into the weighted elimination bracket. So Ryan can kind of rest easily a little bit in the Master League. He is not going to get eliminated from this competition. He's a lock for the bracket and almost a lock for first place as well at this point. In pretty close competition after that, we have YourCalcProf, TForgery, and Manaholix with 9, 8, and 7 points apiece. And these are obviously the front runners for making it into the weighted elimination bracket. Only 4 of our competitors are going to make it to that stage of the competition. But honestly, anything can happen right now, and the order that you make it into the weighted bracket, because it is a weighted bracket, does matter a lot. So the Master League does matter a lot for all 3 of these competitors. And lastly, bringing up the rear, we have myself and Lorma with 5 and 4 points. We are down, but we are not out. There is definitely still a shot for us to make it back in with the Master League games and try to get into the finals. So these are the players that are still going to be in the competition. CuttyWow is going to be eliminated with not enough points here. Only 1 point in the Ultra League and 1 point in the Great League. But we are going to be covering these other 6 players as we move on to the Master League. So definitely, if you want to see those games, if you want to see how the Game Press Go Battle League Gauntlet finishes out, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time. That's going to be it for me for this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace! And you can't run all 3 of those moves. You can only have 2 charge moves on a Pokemon, and really you're only going to want, and realistically you're only going to want, and realistically, you're only gonna run tongue twister. Only gonna run one. And you can only, realistically, you're only gonna run one. You're only gonna wanna run one. Man, that is a tongue twister. And you're only really You're only gonna really wanna run one. You're only really gonna wanna run one. Try to say that. Wow, that is really tough. You're only really gonna wanna run one. I can rewrite that. But now I'm determined to get it right. Okay. But you can't run all 3 of those charge moves. A Pokemon can only have 2 charge moves, and realistically, you're only really going to want to run 1, and I got it right, but I was so excited that I got it right. Ah! Oh, that's so funny. But you can't run all 3 of those charge moves. A Pokemon can only have 2 charge moves, and realistically, you're only going to want to run 1, and then pair that with Ampharos' Thunder Punch, because that costs the least amount of energy for shield baiting purposes. Boom!